Most parents are told to go home and wait by the phone. These 6 grabbed a machete, crossed borders, and hunted the killers themselves. Frank Bergfeld. On June 28, 2007, 34-year-old Paige Bergfeld dropped her 3 kids off with the nanny in Grand Junction, Colorado, and left for a date with her high school sweetheart. She never came home. 3 days later, her 8-year-old daughter picked up the house phone and told the man calling that her mom hadn't been back in days. The kids had been alone with the nanny the entire time. Her boyfriend reported Paige missing immediately. Her father, Frank Bergfeld, got the call from a deputy sheriff while holding a cup of coffee at McDonald's. He drove straight to Grand Junction. On July 1st, a woman driving home from work spotted a burned-out car on the side of the road. It was Paige's red Ford Focus. The driver's seat had been torched first. In the glove compartment, investigators found Paige's day planner, still intact but with 3 pages ripped out. The 3 days leading up to her disappearance, gone. Frank organized a search. Over 200 volunteers showed up under a 118-degree sun. Along Highway 50, they found Paige's belongings scattered over 13 miles. A checkbook, business cards, a driver's license, a single high-heeled shoe. She had tossed them from a moving vehicle, leaving a trail for someone to follow. But tucked between the items was a business card for an adult service called Models Inc. Investigators checked Paige's laptop. She wasn't just connected to the business, she owned it. Paige Bergfeld ran a full escort service to pay her mortgage and raise 3 kids after her divorce. The moment the media found out, the community turned on her. Volunteers stopped showing up. Tips dried up. People asked out loud why anyone was spending resources searching for a dead escort. Frank was the only one still looking. He moved to Grand Junction permanently. He searched the Mesa thousands of times. He pressured the DA every chance he got. The police had a suspect, Lester Jones, a client of Paige's, but the DA said these cases take 6, sometimes 20 years. Frank told him he didn't punch out at the end of the day. This never left him. Phone records showed the last number to call Paige came from a burner phone activated the same day she vanished. Walmart security cameras caught Lester Jones buying that phone, but the DA still wouldn't move. 5 years passed. Then heavy rainstorms hit Grand Junction. A hiker found a human skull in a dry creek bed, 1 mile east of where Paige had scattered her belongings. Dental records confirmed it was her. The DA finally charged Lester Jones. The first trial ended in a mistrial. 3 days of deliberation, no unanimous verdict. Frank waited 6 more months. In the second trial, prosecutors introduced recovered CCTV footage from the night Paige disappeared. It showed Lester's wife's white Chevy Impala circling Paige's office parking lot. The car stopped 4 times. Each time Paige's phone rang from the burner. The jury deliberated 3 days again. This time, they came back guilty. Lester Jones received a life sentence for Paige's kidnapping and murder. Debbie Boyd. On October 5, 2005, 27-year-old Christy Wilson sat down at a blackjack table inside Thunder Valley Casino near Sacramento. Christy was good. She counted cards and regularly pulled $5,000 a night. But that evening, a short, stocky man with dark hair had been watching her from the slot machines. His name was Mario Garcia. He sat at her table. He bought her a drink. She had 1 sip. Casino cameras caught what happened next. Christy became disoriented. She stumbled. She stopped making sense. Garcia leaned in close. In the parking lot, surveillance showed him grabbing her arm as she tried to push him away. Christy Wilson was never seen again. Her mother, Debbie, got the call 2 days later. She was 5'1" and blonde, and she later told reporters she was a barracuda. She drove to Sacramento and started doing what she believed the police wouldn't. She walked into the DA's office. She called detectives daily. She showed up at every hearing. Police identified Garcia quickly. He lived on a 5-acre property outside the city with his wife and children. Cadaver dogs searched the land and found nothing. Garcia was charged based on surveillance footage and the drug drink, but without a body, the case was thin. He was convicted and sentenced to 25 years. The judge extended it to 59 after evidence from a prior kidnapping surfaced. But Debbie didn't stop. She needed to find Christy. For 15 years, she drove past Garcia's property. She wrote letters to the DA. She showed up at every parole hearing to make sure his sentence held. In 2017, Garcia started writing to Debbie from prison. He never admitted anything, but his letters hinted that a deal could be made. He wanted his sentence reduced. In exchange, he would help her find Christy. Debbie sat with the letters for weeks. She considered it. Then she stopped. She told herself he would not use her daughter's body as a bargaining chip. After Garcia's failed attempt at a deal, detectives went back to his family. His son Chris, now an adult, shared something he had never fully understood. A few days after Christy vanished, Chris went to find his father for a soccer game Garcia had never missed. He found him in a field far from the house, working on his tractor. Frantic, disheveled, Garcia barely looked up. He told Chris he wasn't coming. Detectives returned to the property with ground-penetrating radar. They focused on the area Chris described. 20 feet down, they found a bone. An archaeologist confirmed it was human. The full skeleton showed Christy had broken her hand and nose fighting back before she died. That night, 2 detectives who had worked the case for 15 years drove to Debbie's house. Both fell to their knees when the archaeologist confirmed the remains. Debbie asked if it was okay to feel happy. No one had an answer. Debbie Boyd cremated her daughter's remains on the anniversary of her disappearance, and finally put her to rest. Colleen Nick. Colleen Nick had always been told she was too overprotective, too cautious, too worried. On the night of June 9, 1995, she decided to listen. Her 6-year-old daughter Morgan wanted to go catch fireflies with 2 other kids at a Little League baseball game in Alma, Arkansas. Colleen said no, it was too late, too dark. The other parents told her to relax. Kids had been playing out there all night. You could see the whole area from the bleachers. Colleen said yes. Morgan threw her arms around her mother's neck, kissed her on the cheek, and climbed down from the stands. She followed the two kids toward the parking lot. Colleen watched her the entire time. Then she turned back to the game. It was 10:40. The game ended. The two kids came back. Morgan did not. Colleen ran to the parking lot and searched between the cars, under the cars, behind the cars. Within minutes, she had someone call the police. The two children told officers that a man had been leaning against a truck near where they were playing. He had brown hair, a mustache, and a red pickup truck with a white camper shell. 2 months later, a man named Billy Jack Lynx was arrested 8 miles away for trying to abduct an 11-year-old girl. He drove a red pickup truck with a white camper. 3 days later, he was cleared of all charges in Morgan's case. Colleen did not accept that. She founded the Morgan Nick Foundation in 1996. She lobbied Congress. She spoke at schools. She appeared on national television dozens of times. She turned the case into one of the most recognized missing child investigations in Arkansas history. And every year she went back to the police. Every year she asked if they had looked at Lynx again. 28 years passed. In 2023, Colleen was reading about advances in forensic DNA technology when she found Othram Labs, a company using new methods to crack cold cases. She called her detective and asked if he had ever heard of them. He had not. She sent him the article and told him to read it. He agreed to send evidence, a single blonde hair recovered from the floor of Billy Jack Lynx's truck decades earlier. Previous labs couldn't extract enough DNA. The hair was too damaged. On October 1st, 2024, the Alma Police Department held a press conference. Colleen was in the front row. The detective announced that Othram Labs had confirmed the hair belonged to Colleen Nick, one of her siblings, or one of her children. The physical evidence strongly indicated Morgan had been in that truck. After 29 years, Colleen Nick had been right the entire time. She later said that Billy Jack Lynx stole Morgan from her father, from her siblings, but he could never win, because their love for Morgan outlasted his life. Colleen turned the fireflies into a symbol, a light in the darkness. She told other parents not to let fear steal anything else from them. She was told she was too overprotective. The one time she wasn't, she lost everything. Carrie McGonigal. On February 13, 2009, 14-year-old Amber Dubois left for school in Escondido, California. She was carrying a deposit for a lamb she had been saving up to raise for an agriculture class project. She had already named it Nanette. Amber never made it to school. Her mother, Carrie, got a call from her boyfriend that afternoon. Amber's teacher confirmed she never arrived. Carrie knew immediately. Nothing on earth would have stopped Amber from picking up that lamb. The police didn't agree. They treated it as a runaway. They checked party spots, questioned boys, canvassed friends' houses. Carrie told them her daughter would never leave her pet behind, or her luggage, or her medication. She organized her own search team the same night. 15 people showed up within the hour. Weeks turned into months. No body, no evidence, no witnesses. The case went cold. Then, on February 25, 2010, almost exactly a year later and 6 miles south, 17-year-old Chelsea King went for a jog at Rancho Bernardo Community Park and never came back. Carrie saw it on the news. 2 girls, same area, same age range, same pattern. She contacted Chelsea's family immediately. Police arrested John Albert Gardner III within days. He was a registered sex offender who had served 5 years for molesting a 13-year-old in 2000. His psychological evaluation stated he would reoffend. He violated his parole 7 times. Each time, the system let him walk. Gardner was charged with Chelsea's murder, but Carrie needed to know about Amber. She pushed detectives to connect the 2 cases. When the district attorney offered Gardner a plea deal, life without parole instead of the death penalty, the condition was that he had to reveal what he did to Amber. Gardner took the deal. He told investigators where Amber's remains were buried. Carrie McGonigal walked into that courtroom and stood in front of the man who killed her daughter. She looked at him and asked one question: where he had put her child. Gardner answered through his attorney. He led police to a site in Paula, north of Escondido. Amber's remains were recovered. What Carrie did next surprised everyone. She said her daughter was the one making her forgive him, not what he did, him. She said holding on to hate wouldn't bring Amber back, and she still had another daughter to raise. Gardner received 2 consecutive life sentences without parole. Even he admitted he should never have been released. He told the court he was the most dangerous type of predator, that he was like an animal, and that he would kill again if given the chance. Chelsea's parents, Brent and Kelly King, launched a campaign to reform California's sex crime laws. Chelsea's law passed in 2010. It requires 25 years to life for violent sex offenders who inflict great bodily harm on a child. First offense or fifth. Around 50 offenders are charged under its provisions every year. Carrie adopted a puppy and named her Amber. She trained the dog for search and rescue. Team Amber has since located multiple missing teenagers and in 2011 found the remains of nursing student Michelle Lee, something the police had been unable to do despite months of searching. Mary Rose. In September of 1981, 15-year-old Annette Craver was having a yard sale in Houston, Texas, selling off her dead father's belongings. A man on a motorcycle pulled up to browse. His name was Felix Vale. He was 40 years old. Annette's mother, Mary Rose, was there. She didn't think anything of it. He was just another customer. What Mary Rose didn't know was that Felix Vale had already killed at least one woman, his first wife, found floating in a Louisiana river in 1962. No one was ever charged. Mary Rose needed work. She left Houston for a temporary job in Oklahoma, leaving Annette with a family friend for a few months until she graduated. While Mary Rose was gone, Felix visited Annette over and over. He was 25 years older than her. By the time Mary Rose found out, it was too late. Annette had dropped everything and left on a road trip with Felix. In 1983, Annette came home briefly. Mary Rose looked at her daughter and saw nothing behind her eyes. She later described it as looking at a zombie. Annette told her mother she had married Felix in California. She was 17. He was 43. But something inside Annette was still fighting. She told Mary Rose she wanted a divorce. She wanted to go back to school. She wanted out. Shortly after, Annette vanished. No phone calls, no letters, no trace. Felix told everyone she ran off. Mary Rose called the local police. They did nothing. She called again. Nothing. She went to the station in person. They told her Annette was an adult who had left on her own. So Mary Rose became her own detective. She tracked Felix across multiple states. She talked to his ex-girlfriends, his neighbors, anyone who had crossed his path. She discovered that Felix had a pattern. He targeted young, isolated women, pulled them into his orbit, and when they tried to leave, they disappeared. His second wife, Sharon, had also vanished under similar circumstances. At one point, Mary Rose broke into a property Felix had been staying at. She had a machete. She found journals in which Felix wrote about drinking raw blood, but nothing about the murders. She kept looking anyway. For decades, nothing moved. Then investigative journalist Jerry Mitchell picked up the case in 2012. He and Mary Rose worked together, re-interviewing witnesses, building a timeline. They found a man named Ike Absher, 90 years old, living in a house surrounded by cardboard boxes with dates on them. Ike had been Felix Vale's roommate in the 1960s. Ike's father owned the boat that recovered the body of Felix's first wife from the river. Ike handed the investigators an envelope. On the front, one word, keep. Inside were 2 photographs from the body recovery. The forensic pathologist happened to be walking past the table when the photos were laid out. He glanced down and asked who murdered her. That was the moment the case broke open. Felix Vale was arrested and charged with the murder of his first wife. In 2016, after 10 minutes of deliberation, he was found guilty and sentenced to life. 3 months later, Ike Absher died. Mary Rose never found Annette's body. She still writes letters to her daughter. Josephine Wenzel. The last known footage of Crystal Mitchell was taken inside a San Diego condo building. She slides down a wall, covers her eyes with her hands, then stands and looks behind her. She walks toward the parking lot elevator. She looks like she has escaped whoever was chasing her. She hasn't. Crystal Mitchell was 30 years old, a single mother of 2. She had recently moved from Vancouver, Washington to Phoenix, Arizona to start fresh after a difficult divorce. In the summer of 2016, she sent her kids to stay with her mother Josephine for a few months and left for a weekend trip to San Diego with her new boyfriend, Raymond McLeod. The next morning, Josephine texted Crystal, nothing. She texted again, nothing. When the phone rang from a 619 area code San Diego, Josephine knew before she picked up. She handed the phone to her husband. The San Diego police told him Crystal had been found dead in the condo. She had been strangled. McLeod was gone. McLeod had a history. He had been convicted of domestic violence before. He had assaulted multiple partners, including his ex-wife. He was charged with Crystal's murder in absentia, but by then he had already crossed the border into Mexico. Most parents would have waited for the marshals to do their job. Josephine Wenzel was not most parents. Before she retired, she had been a detective. She came out of retirement the day her daughter was killed. Josephine began tracking McLeod herself. She pulled contacts from her law enforcement career. She flew to Mexico. She got close multiple times, but each time someone warned McLeod, and he fled. She realized he had a network helping him stay hidden. McLeod moved from Mexico deeper into Central America. Josephine followed. She tracked him through Guatemala, then into El Salvador. She found reports of him beating local women along the way. Neighbors in one village told her he beat a Mayan woman so badly they could hear her screaming through the walls. Every new report made Josephine more aggressive. She finally located him in El Salvador. He was teaching English under a false identity. Josephine contacted the United States Marshals with the exact location. They coordinated with Salvadoran police and raided his residence. McLeod had been sighted with firearms before, so officers were expecting a fight. He stepped outside without resistance. He had been running for years, but by that point, his own face was on wanted posters in every country he entered. The lead marshal called Josephine and told her directly. Without her, McLeod would not have been arrested. But justice took its time. McLeod's parents were wealthy. They had wired him $10,000 the day Crystal died. They hired top defense attorneys and brought in Dr. Drew Pinsky as an expert witness for the preliminary hearing. The defense delayed proceedings 10 times over 2 years. They claimed Crystal's death was accidental, that she had asked McLeod to choke her during a consensual act. The prosecution pointed to the trail of blood from the condo to the elevator and the security footage of McLeod grabbing Crystal by the throat. Josephine sat through every delay, every postponement, every defense motion. When asked on a podcast if she was ready to testify against the man who killed her daughter, she admitted she wasn't sure she could hold it together. The host reminded her she had already hunted him across 3 countries. She could handle a courtroom. Josephine Wenzel once said she turned her pain into power and nothing could stop her.